If you're building a team, I asked this of Christopher Russo in the first hour, would you take Anthony Edwards or would you take Shai Gilgeous-Alexander if you're starting from scratch?
That is the existential question that will decide the Western Conference Finals, it feels like. I feel like, to some degree, stylistically, everybody looks at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's game and says it's not stylistically as attractive as Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards has the game that looks like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and guys like and Dwayne Wade. So you kind of feel like a familiarity and a kinship to it. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the MVP and is going to be announced as the MVP this week. Now, he is 3 years older than Anthony Edwards. So maybe there's a maturity aspect of it there that you would take over Ant. But man, the way that Ant plays is kind of irresistible. I think that's the right word to say here, because he puts his force on the game in ways that is very loud. And even though it's as familiar as Michael and Kobe and Vince Carter and Dwayne Wade, it's still pretty freaking effective. And the fact that he's 23, he's back in the Western Conference Finals for the second time. This is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's first one. I think you can make the argument that Anthony Edwards is going to be the guy in the future, while Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the guy right now.
Wow, it's so hard because I feel like I get it. And at the same time, I feel strangely more confident with Shai Gilgeous. I just feel like there's that maturity level that makes me feel a little bit stronger heading down this home stretch where the games are that much bigger and with that much more at stake.
Absolutely. I think the variance is in Anthony Edwards' explosiveness, right? So you feel like the highs are more higher than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But when you looked at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the 3 games that he's played since, or the 4 games that he's played since the Denver Nuggets went up 2-1, on Oklahoma City, he's averaged 32. He shot over 60% from the field from the shooting guard position. That's really impressive and really difficult to do. He plays an effective game where you don't feel like the bad games will feel as bad, maybe, but Anthony Edwards, his ceiling is so much higher. The game stylistically looks just so much more appealing. But I tend to agree with you on this, Suzy, just the fact that Oklahoma City has won 68 games this year. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the best player on that team, and he's driving that. Like that has to earn some credit in this discussion.
And that's, to me, why this seems like almost a silly conversation, but worth having regardless, because how has he not cemented the MVP? So then as we're talking about it from that perspective, I would 100% want to take my team and build it around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, because he's already shown in this year that he has the maturity that we haven't seen from Anthony Edwards yet. So if I'm building a team, I'd start there.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that to some degree. But here's what I will say for Anthony Edwards. He is 23, and you have given him players that we in the NBA public have not believed to be the most winning attribute players in Julius Randle, Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, players who have been maligned in their other stops. And Anthony Edwards has empowered those guys and poured life into them. So even though it doesn't feel the same way as far as the leadership, the fact that he's built those guys up and has found a way to do it in ways that it took Kobe Bryant years to be able to connect with his teammates. It took a long time for Michael Jordan to be able to empower his teammates. He has that leadership quality in a much different way, and it's not conventional. It's in that sort of very Atlanta, very, smile. Like I said before, I always say about Anthony Edwards, he's a bad kid, but like the bad kid that the teacher loves, so he never really gets in trouble because you just love him so much. Like that's what he brings. And you can't fault Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for just being calm and steady and being that guy in Oklahoma City. When they started that rebuild, when they traded Russell Westbrook and Paul George and they stripped that thing down, the one player that they got was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he was okay with the process. He was okay with them building, and now he's starting to reap the rewards and the fruits of that patience.
And so then who do you see then moving on for the finals from this side before we switch to the other side?
I feel like Oklahoma City has more answers than Minnesota. And I think that these two teams are kind of evenly matched. Their strengths are similar, but I feel like maybe they have one or two more good players. And when you win 68 games and you haven't played a lot of close games and you've blown out the Denver Nuggets in some of those games, I tend to give you a little bit more credit because we don't know what Minnesota would have done if Stephen Curry had played in that series. They took care of their matchup, but Oklahoma City's a little bit more tested at this point. Maybe this is their year.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.